Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies for being late on this. YouTube kind of did a number on us. Today we're going to be talking about a few subjects, mostly the federal government, state governments, and the ATF. Given that, I will go ahead and I will start introducing my co-hosts. We're going to start off with my main co-host, our Soviet Kanukistani, and our dirty Frenchy Frenchman. Please say hello, Dale.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night, ladies and gentlemen.
That's
I'm
your
once
exit.
more coming to you live from the frozen wastes of Montreal. Bonjour. Bonjour tout le monde. And it's good to be here. Welcome to the show.
Fucking Frenchy Frenchmans. Anyways, next we will go ahead and go to our southern friends down in South Carolina. Please say hello, Stoner and Z.
Hello.
And then we will go ahead and move on to my gorgeous, lovely wife, fiance, housemaker, Kota. Please say hello, Kota.
Hello, everyone. I'm also side playing Dead by Daylight. So you guys had survival instincts, conversations. I'm probably going to die from a dumbass.
Oh, cool.
And then we have our native Serbian. Please say hello, Mali.
Hello, my dad is a war criminal.
Really? Really? War criminal, huh? Okay.
Yeah. He fought in
then,
the war in the 90s.
And then we have our current American resident, formerly from the Soviet Union. Please say hello, Svetlana.
What do you mean formerly from? I'm currently from there.
Okay. Well, you are not currently living there, and the Soviet Union no longer
and
exists.
And also, please don't put American in the same line as my name.
I didn't say American. I say you live in America.
I'm not an American resident. I'm a temporary inhabitant.
Okay.
Anyways.
Got it.
She's a denizen of the New York sewers.
In support of my Serbian girlfriend, I'm going to have to say Kosovo je Serbia.
Based.
I would agree.
Okay. Okay.
Cool, Kosovo.
So today we are having a twofer in the very first segment. This is going to be a video of a shooting in Indianapolis, Indiana. I believe in the suburbs of Indianapolis. Let me go ahead and get this pulled up.
Sorry to interrupt briefly. It's just on Discord. I'm not currently seeing the screen for the show. I assume Z is seeing it on YouTube, but
I haven't put it up yet. I haven't put it up yet. Take a chill pill.
No worries.
Erica's slowly losing her mind.
Well, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff right now. Okay, so now that everyone in the Discord has the screen, let me go ahead and get this pulled up. Let's see. There it is. And pull up the video. So this is a video from Indianapolis, the suburbs of Indianapolis. And this is of a shooting. Let's go ahead and take a quick look. It's only 16 seconds.
Oh, this...
They're shooting at Rico. Huh? They're having a shooting.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some stupidity here.
The Gawking Rabble once again proved the moniker "the Gawking Rabble" is accurate.
Yeah,
This is
so
a Gawking Rabble.
Them.
right around 4 seconds, as the little girl runs out to what I can only assume is her mother. She's about to turn to all of these other people and say something about a shooting.
They're shooting at Rico. Huh?
And then 2 seconds later, she's saying something to, I'd assume, her neighbor, saying they're having a shootout. Listen, when we're talking about when we're talking about a shooting, you don't just stand there and look. Now, people on Twitter were talking about the fight or flight reflex, which is actually the fight, flight, or freeze reflex. None of this falls under that.
No.
Because no one's getting involved. No one is running away. And no one's frozen. They're all just trying to get a better stinking look.
They're just casually observing the shootout.
Honestly, this looks like typical New Yorker behavior.
Don't get me started on those communists.
Yeah.
Okay. It is an insult to actual communists to call New Yorkers communists.
No one wants to be called a New Yorker.
Yeah. I mean, actual communists actually had to deal with stuff like, starving and shit. These New Yorkers don't. They're just bitches.
True. Okay, so we've talked before about emergent behavior on this podcast, and I want to reiterate that the fight, flight, or freeze reflex is based upon one of the most fundamental building blocks in evolution: emergent behavior.
Right.
All living beings have or are supposed to have fight, flight, or freeze, because this specific instinct follows the building block that created it.
I'd like to add, I can think of at least 2 more additions to this instinct. The other one that is commonly used in psychology is fawn, which is when you, how should I put it? You basically assume a position of submission in order to prevent yourself from getting absolutely fucked. And the other one is hunt, which basically, it looks kind of like freeze, but what you're actually doing is you're carefully calculating your next move.
Yes.
I don't know how else to describe it.
That's built in under emergent behavior, and emergent behavior is how we deal with an obstacle in our daily lives. So the 3 basic building blocks in emergent behavior are: when faced with an obstacle, you are going to try to burst through the obstacle. You are going to try to find a way around the obstacle, or you're going to sit there and wait for the obstacle to remove itself. Obviously, this is not a one-to-one comparison between fight, flight, and freeze, and this situation where we're talking about the evolutionary building blocks of human behavior. But in everyday life, we are faced with obstacles, and we get through these specific obstacles based on these 3 building blocks. That's
Correct.
what fight, flight, and freeze is based upon, is those building blocks. Freeze, wait for the obstacle to remove itself. Flight, try to get around the obstacle. Fight, try to blow through the obstacle. These people are exhibiting none of these. And the danger inherent to them while they're outside and watching a shootout, is extremely high. Something should have already been triggered in their lizard brain that said, you are in danger, remove yourself from it.
Well, this is Americans, so not all of them have the brain capacity.
True.
That's true, but I have to add this is becoming more common throughout the entire world. This isn't just Americans. People
In that case, it's like people are getting like used to it. It's kind of like when you commit war crimes. The more you do it, the more you just feel like numb to it. It's like whatever.
I can relate.
I mean, looking at it, I do agree it's becoming more common for the world to just do that. But I'm honestly surprised no one tried to film themselves on TikTok talking about the shooting while it was happening.
that would have been even more dumb.
That's another thing that has become more common. No, I'm in danger. I'm just gonna take out my phone and start live streaming the danger.
Yeah. Welcome to TikTok.
So it's not until about 14 seconds. Okay, so right around the 11-second mark, more like the 10-second mark, did people start to realize, hey, we're in danger?
So, as someone who actually has like trained for this stuff, what would you say, Erica, would be the actual? What would be a good or a decently good time frame from you hear something that could be gunfire to recognizing it's gunfire and getting out of the way of the gunfire?
Well, they recognized it within the first few the first few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's let's see, 2, 3, 4 seconds in.
Well, that's a long reaction time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
they're very slow.
Let's take another look at this. So, someone already recognized it because the mom ran up from next door to her daughter.
Picked her up and then faced her to the gunfire.
Uh-huh. So they already recognize that there is a danger going on. And they're standing there looking around. From the moment that you recognize there's a danger, you should one of the three things should have kicked in by now. Fight, flight, or freeze. They're not freezing. They're just looking on. They're not flying. They're not trying to escape. They don't try to do that until another 6 seconds into this. Now, at that point, I suspect the direction at which the gunfire is being exchanged has moved and is now pointing almost in their direction. They shouldn't have been out there to begin with. None of these people are armed, which means you need to take cover and concealment. Or concealment.
Right. Assuming that there is gunfire not directed at you, I'm just curious, because concealment, my understanding is you can't be seen, but the bullets can still go through it and hit you. So what is the benefit of just concealment, if assuming there's no cover, if you're near gunfire being directed not against you?
You're making it so that you're not a target. The whole adage from that old Commodore 64 text-based game, if I can't see you, you can't see me. If you can't see them, they can't see you, you're not a target.
Fair enough.
Now, cover, you're right. There's a difference between concealment and cover, but cover is also concealment. But you take cover when you've already become a target. You take concealment before you've ever become a target. If you're a target, get to cover.
Right. But would it be safe to assume, because assuming there's a gunfight going on not involving you, is there reason to assume that like those people would then target you rather than just a fight between some other parties that don't relate to you? Or
It depends on the intent of the person that's caused the shootout.
all right.
You cannot say for certain what their intentions are. Your best bet is always concealment and cover.
I see.
If you have been noticed by anyone, get cover.
So I have a question.
Yep.
Do we have like any more info on what the fuck happened here? And like what was the shooting over?
Let me see. I do remember that there's an article on this. Let me try to go find it real quick. I believe I bookmarked it.
All right. In the meantime, while assuming you're armed and are then privy to such an encounter not directly involving you, at which point should you be drawing your own weapon? Should you be drawing it only once you got to cover concealment? Should you be drawing it beforehand or while running to cover / concealment?
That's another dependent on what's going on. If you are armed and you can identify the person causing harm, feel free to engage with the target. If you have your weapon, go ahead and engage with the target. If you haven't been identified and you have no desire to identify the target, and you don't want to be in the line of fire, get the fuck out of the line of fire. Don't worry about drawing your weapon until you've become a target. Let's see.
Right.
Okay, that's the 26th. I did not have it under...
Well, I would argue you shouldn't draw your weapon until you have a good firing position. So even if you've become a target, like, there's no point in drawing your weapon if you don't have a good firing position.
Well, here's the thing about that. If you're going to try to get a good position, a good firing position, whether or not you've become a target already doesn't mean that in the time it takes to get to a good position, you won't become a target. You should be ready and able to take aim at the target whenever. We're talking about a dynamic situation. You are very rarely going to get a perfect sight picture, a perfect backdrop.
Well,
they don't exist.
When I mean a good firing position, I mean really two things. First, you do need to have cover. Firing in an open field is generally not a good idea. And
Yes.
also you need a spot where there's little to no possibility of you getting flanked.
Correct.
Assuming those
AKA if you're in a
things
corner.
are possible at the time.
But we're talking about a dynamic situation. While you're moving to cover or concealment, you can still become a target, which means you're going to have to do what's called laying down suppressive fire. You can't just run because there are people that are trained for a target running. It's called lead off. If you're moving, that's great. You should be moving, but you should also know how to fire while moving. That's going to help you get to where you're going if you do become a target.
Okay, granted, when I say take cover, I by no means am implying that you need to run somewhere. You know, obviously, you need to go, you know, wherever is closest, preferably someplace that's like immediately within arm's length.
Yes.
Where was I going with this? Obviously, all of this is going to be highly situational, so it's it's a little pointless.
Like I said, like you have said now, it's dynamic. Things are going to change very quickly. To be prepared for such a dynamic situation, draw your weapon, have it at the ready, be ready to fire, but still be moving towards cover.
Huh?
Let's see. Okay,
how would you describe suppressive fire? Because my understanding of suppressive fire is generally like, say for example, is a military engagement. You engage with like a automatic fire just to keep them from the enemy from moving to a different position or from being able to fire back at you accurately.
So that's squad tactics. In squad tactics, you generally have a 4-person fire team. You have 3 people moving, and you have 1 person with an open bolt firearm. Generally, the SAW 249 Golf.
Right.
But when we're talking about a dynamic situation like this, you're laying down your own suppressive fire. It's in squad tactics, you have 3 people moving, the 3 that have the regular service rifles, and the person with the automatic weapon is firing while these 3 are moving. And then they drop and they fire while the person that had the automatic weapon is moving. But again, that's squad tactics. You don't have that in dynamic situations.
Correct.
The military is great for a lot of things. Dynamic gunfights are not one of them. Okay, so this is where I found it. Let's go ahead and trace this back. Okay, go ahead and close that, and I will move to a different screen. No, let's try this one. Nope. Oh, well, hold on. Nope, that's not good. Okay. We'll get it from here. So 47 shots fired near a quiet family gathering. This was January 29th, 2024. In the shocking security camera footage, shots are captured ringing through the air in Indianapolis, Indiana. A family residing on Denison Street rushed inside after almost 50 bullets were shot at multiple homes. Alyssa Vaught in blue sweatshirt can be seen confused alongside her family. She said that there were usually a lot of gunshots on the road, so it was unclear if it was an actual shooting. The family of 5 believed that the noise came from fireworks at first. When the gunfire continued, that was when they realized there was a shootout.
On that, how hard is it, or how easy is it to determine gunshots vs fireworks?
pretty easy if you've been around firearms.
So it is a distinct sound from like fireworks going on.
Yes.
All right.
See, with fireworks, you don't have the two basic sounds that come from a firearm, at least a semi-automatic firearm. You have the sound of the bullet breaking the sound barrier, and then you have the sound of the gas leaving the chamber.
Right.
Let's see. Ronnie Vaught, wearing black pants, stated he saw 3 people wearing masks and patrolling around the house. Several cars were hit and stray bullets went through people's windows and walls. The shooter started to run up and down the street, firing more shots. One resident's fish tank was broken through the window. Another person living nearby had their red sedan's windshield shattered by a bullet. Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department stated that 2 people were shot and taken to the hospital to be treated. They have now recovered. The Vaught family and their neighbors were scared to death, but they all hope that something like this never happens again. That's great, but between the time that you're pointing at the people shooting and saying they're having a shootout to the time that you're running inside was 4 seconds. Not to mention the fact that there was another 2 or 3 seconds before that where you already recognized that there was gunfire.
And being that this is suburban Indianapolis, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say these people have probably never even seen a gun before in their life. Right? They've probably never heard a gun or been near gunfire. So, yeah.
Well,
in a way, it makes a bit of sense they didn't know what's going on, but at the same time, it doesn't really excuse their lack of an instinct of self-preservation.
Okay, so Denison Street is, yeah, definitely the suburbs, because it is
Like,
right
I don't know
off
about
of
the rest of
Interstate
y'all,
70.
but whenever I hear a noise that is loud and sudden enough, when it either fully or partially triggers my fight or flight. Like, thunder generally doesn't do it, but if it lands close enough and it's loud enough, it's gonna trigger me. So, like, even if in the moment I don't know it's thunder, so I'm just thinking, even if you can't identify a target, there has to be a certain threshold, which I would assume guns typically cross, where your natural instinct would be like, okay, there most likely is danger, even if I don't understand it.
I would generally agree, but it's all dependent on your ability to recognize the sound and be exposed to it and have some sort of mental reaction at first. Having it trigger your fight or flight immediately and immediately flying away, that's a completely acceptable reaction. Hearing the sound and not doing jack shit, but instead gawking, I mean,
yeah.
you
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I agree.
I think my term, the gawking rabble, really sums it up.
I was at work this week, and Monday and Tuesday, even Wednesday, was really good. And then Thursday rolls around, and I run into people who drank stupid juice for breakfast. And we're talking about moving vehicles. 2-ton vehicles around a 40-ton vehicle. You would think that they know I can run through them and just completely demolish them. No survival instinct whatsoever.
Wow.
Indeed. It seems to be more and more self-evident that just people who've gone through their whole life without ever needing to use their fight or flight or freeze instinct, it just kind of is blunted or is blocked. And it is evident suburban Indianapolis. These people have probably never seen danger in their whole life, and
No.
they probably have no idea. There's no ability to process it or
I would
act
also like to
rationally.
add,
Yeah.
As a Russian, I've noticed that a lot of Americans are conditioned to kind of like suppress any instincts or feelings they may have, which necessarily would extend to fight or flight. So maybe that's just the way they reacted is just an extension of that conditioning.
It's possible. I mean, yes, we're not talking about metro or urban areas of Indianapolis. But there has been something I've noticed a lot recently when it comes to crime in any metro area. You take a look at the pin right here on Denison Street. And now take a look at this. Waste Management Indianapolis Recycling Facility.
So
a lot of the
this
crime
is a waste management issue.
No, it's not specifically a waste management issue, but I have noticed that the closer you come to industrial areas, especially in the suburbs and in urban areas, the more crime there is.
Wait, what do you mean industrial areas? Are we in the 1800s? I was pretty sure they deindustrialized urban and suburban areas a long time ago.
No, not at all.
No. Even here, it's common to do that.
Because while I have seen industrial places in the US, most of what I've seen was in more rural areas.
No, we're still the most industrial area. Cities are the ideal place for industrial zones just because of the density of people, and even though when you see industrial area, you don't necessarily have to think of like a factory in the 1890s.
Oh yeah, I know. Like industrial areas today look very different than they did 200 years ago. I'm aware.
Yes.
And just because something's more economically effective or efficient doesn't mean that's what they're gonna do.
In general, it means that's what they're going to do because it's cheaper and more efficient. Like, why would someone put a factory or why would someone industrialize an area that outputs half of what would be outputted in, say, another area?
Because it could be more profitable to be less economically efficient, and
not really.
That is something you learn in like literally first semester economics.
And can you give me an example of such a thing?
I don't need to give you an example. I could tell you the math of how this works. So
All
have
right.
you heard of supply and demand, and
Yeah.
where supply meets demand, that's going to be the market price, market quantity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Well, in reality, that works only in a perfectly competitive economy, which, spoiler alert, doesn't exist.
That it works in every. The laws of supply and demand exist in every economy and every society that's ever existed.
It exists. Well, hold on.
Right? Supply.
It exists as a way to like denote market value of something, quote unquote, but it doesn't actually determine much. Like it determines a lot less than they teach you in high school.
No, it determines a lot more than they teach you in high school. Because in high school, for example,
can I finish? Because I'm about to tell you the math behind this.
Go for
so
it.
when a firm is deciding how much they're going to produce and at what price, they do not look at supply and demand. What they look at is the marginal revenue curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so the marginal revenue curve has a slope that is half of the demand curve,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Right.
when that marginal revenue curve, when it hits a zero, which means you're not getting any more out of it. Or wait, was it? Hold on. It's either it hits zero, like it hits the x-axis, or it hits the supply curve. Whichever one it is, that is very necessarily gonna be to the left of market equilibrium, which means less is produced. On the other hand, because you're producing less, that creates more scarcity, which drives the prices up. And this effect is especially highlighted with products where the elasticity of demand is low, meaning you can jack up the prices, but people are still going to buy it because they need it, like housing or healthcare.
Okay.
Yeah.
What when I'm talking about industrial areas, I'm generally talking about what I deal with on a daily basis, which is paper mills and recycling facilities, which inherently have to be within city limits, next to suburbs, next to urban areas. And I pointed out this specific facility because I deal with waste management and international paper daily. They are always within city limits, always near urban and suburban areas, because the way that this company works is they have their collection. Waste management has collection throughout the entire city. There's probably 5 or 6 waste management facilities within this entire area of Indianapolis. And then they transfer all of that down to international paper here. Now, everything that's collected by waste management is scrap paper. It's all scrap paper, and it's going to go to International Paper Company right here. International Paper Company is going to recycle that into rolls and boxes of paper. And that's going to get shipped throughout the entire U.S. Since this is in Indianapolis, it's probably going to get shipped between Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Because once you get to Tennessee, what's the other company? Georgia Pacific has a huge corner on the market in the southeastern United States. And then International Paper also works in the northeastern United States and the central United States. So Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois. I travel to Chicago on a daily basis. And let me show you exactly where we're talking about. So we are in the metro area. First exit past Cicero, down to 47th, off of Pulaski. Here is another waste management center. Right here. Another waste management. But they don't have an international paper company there. So that gets shipped to the nearest mill that there is, which isn't Indianapolis. It's in Iowa. And Iowa's international paper mill is right off of 30, right here. And this is a huge paper mill. Let me go ahead and pull it up on... That is the paper mill. That is the drop yard. This yard right here is filled with trailers that are loaded with rolls of paper, as is this yard and this yard. There are hundreds of trailers a day bringing paper in and having loads of rolls put onto these trailers and shipped out. It's advantageous for international paper to have their paper mills in suburb and urban areas, especially smaller suburban areas. So like this city, Cedar Rapids, the urban area of Cedar Rapids is right here. Just right around this little S-curve. That's where the entire urban area of Cedar Rapids is. Everything else, suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just an economic curve that we're dealing with. We're talking about practicality in things, not just in prices, cost of goods, but also cost in transport.
Yeah, well, that's another
Well, still,
point.
when it comes to the way something is done from an efficiency perspective, they're never gonna try and do it as efficiently as possible, because that is gonna be less economically profitable.
Well, that's not true. For example, the most efficient thing is going to be the most cost efficient thing, but also, like, I wanted to make this point. I'm assuming that those areas are rather close to either one of two things: large rail lines or port. Would that be accurate?
Let's see. There is a rail line that leaves international paper directly.
Exactly.
Here
is this
the
close
rail
to any
line.
ports? Like shipping?
No ports here in this city, but the rail line is right here.
Yeah,
and it quite literally goes directly into international paper.
Yeah, which is another, like, most industry that exists in the developed world is usually focused. They want to be as close to either one of two things as possible: rail lines or ports. Ideally, rail lines and ports, simply for ease of distribution. Right? You want to get your goods either on the train or on the ship as cheaply and as quickly as possible. To actually distribute it wherever it is it's supposed to go, which is cities historically, like urban areas historically, have at least one of, if not both of those things. They're usually built either around ports or at least later on heavily developed freight lines. New York City is a good example. As awful as it is, it's also a hub of both freight and shipping. And it's not an accident that a lot of most industrial activity takes place around freight and around ports.
I'm afraid the issue here is not economic efficiency, but rather economy of scale, which you demonstrated economy of scale, which I'm never going to deny that effect, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to be doing what is most economically efficient, because mathematically they're never going to want to do it because they care about profit maximizing, not economic efficiency. You know, you can have more of a product at a cheaper price produced, but they're never going to do that because that's less profitable.
I think we have different definitions of economic efficiency. The definition of economic efficiency is the least input for the most it's the least input for the most output, right? It's the
okay,
most.
What are you measuring output in? Are you measuring output in terms of goods or cash?
Goods.
I have a question.
Well, then if you're measuring it in terms of goods, then you're wrong. Because, like I said, a firm isn't gonna care. Okay, why would a firm care about optimizing the amount of goods that get delivered into the market when they can have less of those goods and make more money overall? Why would they do that?
A couple of reasons. One, because assuming they're not optimizing this efficiency, someone else can come and undercut them who is optimizing this efficiency.
Why would they want to do that? Because that same person that comes along, right, they're going to end up shooting themselves in the foot by doing something that's not profit maximizing and screwing everyone else over in the process, which eventually gets everyone to gang up on them and shut them down, which has happened many times.
What they're doing is, if I can undercut someone who's making more profit by being more efficient, I make more money.
Why would you undercut them if you're also undercutting yourself in the process?
Because I then make more money and I steal their market share.
No, you're not stealing anything. Have you heard of the prisoner's dilemma?
Yes. So this happens all the time.
So there's a little modification of the prisoner's dilemma where you have two players and you can choose to cooperate and you get 3 coins. If both sides cooperate, you get 3 coins. Both sides. If one side cooperates, the other one fucks them over. The one that fucks them over gets 5. The one that cooperates gets -1. And if they both fuck each other over, you know, it's 0, right?
Yeah, there's no magical arbitrator
after doing rigorous mathematical analysis of how this game works, they've figured that it is always within your best interest to cooperate, you know, unless the other person is just dead on non-cooperative, you know, just can't even reason with them. And
again, you can't extrapolate between two individuals.
People who manage firms understand these basic principles, and no one in their right mind would undercut their own profits just to screw everyone else over, because
they're not
making less money so that everyone else makes less money. That makes no sense.
No, they're not
There's only one situation I can think of where such a tactic is used and it works, and if it's you're already a big company and you get a smaller competitor that could actually hurt you in the long run, what you're going to do is you're going to tank the prices. So you're going to be like actually in the red for some time. But also, so is your competitor. Your competitor goes bankrupt, you buy them out.
No, they're not
That
undercutting
happens.
they're not undercutting their own profits.
They are because
They're
you
taking
because
from other, yeah.
no.
All right, there is
No,
an
no, no, no,
inefficient.
no. That's not how economics works. If
Yes,
you
it
are
is.
not going by the profit maximizing price, you are undercutting your own profits.
Okay, we've gone too far off
uh,
in the weeds. We have gone way too far off in the weeds. We are,
I just have one question.
yeah.
Isn't what Dale explained, which is the factory input and output thing, isn't that just basically throughput?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I said.
That's throughput.
Yes, throughput
Okay.
is economic efficiency.
We are done. This one has been beaten with a stick, and it's a dead horse. It's goo. It's red bloody goo on my floor now. We're done. My whole point, and I don't know how we got to economics from a shooting. Well, I do know how we got there, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a trend that I've noticed that in urban and suburban areas, the higher crime seems to be near industrial areas. Now, let's go ahead and get on to the next topic, which is
So if I might just make one final point about the shootings.
No
about the
more.
shootings. No?
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
My original point wasn't necessarily that it was because of waste management that more violence takes place. It was specifically that because of Italian American waste management that these shootings take place.
Okay.
Did an Italian American just leave the chat?
Yeah.
No, that was
my
Coda.
Sopranos reference.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get on to the next subject. I need to pull it up. So we have had several federal court wins announced to us from the FPC, the Firearms Policy Coalition. And we are going to go ahead and pull those up. So I need to get this one up. We have... let's see. In the first case, I believe this is... federal judge has issued a preliminary injunction against an upstate New York public housing authority that banned its tenants from keeping handguns in their homes. So that's a federal injunction from upstate New York. Let's see, who are the plaintiffs? Robert Hunter, Elmer Irwin, Doug Marin, and the Second Amendment Foundation. So SAF.
Based.
Let's see. The injunction covers relevant background. Accordingly, ordered that the clerk of court shall amend the docket sheet to correct the spelling of the defendant's last name in accordance with Note 1. Ordered the plaintiff's consolidated motion for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction is granted. And it is further ordered that defendants, their officers, agents, servants, employees, and attorneys, and those acting in concert with them are temporarily enjoined from taking any action to enforce or otherwise requiring any person or entity to comply with the firearms ban as set forth in tenants' obligations in Article 9, Section P of Defendant's Standard Residential Lease Agreement, pending final resolution of this action, except to the extent that it prohibits the display, use, or possession of firearms in the common areas, grounds, or parking areas of the property of the housing authority in violation of New York state law, and it is further ordered that plaintiffs are excused from giving security. So kind of a we'll give you this, but we're taking this away. That's a good order for the most part. This use or possession of firearms in the common areas is a bad part of the order, and I wish that the judge in this would have fixed that. That's bad juju. Because the common areas of these housing areas are right outside the door of your house. That's a common area. It's also a curtilage, but it is a common area. It's commonly accessible for anyone within the community to walk up to your doorstep and knock on your fucking door.
Right.
Let's see. FPC had made comments on this. So let's go ahead and pull up what they've said.
So just to confirm, this is an SAF case that the FPC is just commenting on Twitter.
Yes,
Right.
FPC comments on everything firearms related.
Correct.
Let's see. The judge says that he has trouble accepting the housing authority's argument that public housing didn't exist at the founding. For the sake of brevity, the court will not linger on the lack of relevant similarity between limiting a right and criminal convicts and limiting a right of criminal convicts and limiting a right of law-abiding responsible citizens, which is pretty scathing. Defendants base their justification for their firearms ban on half of a historical analog, which actually seems to undermine their case. Even if the court were persuaded by this assertion, the Supreme Court in Heller specifically rejected it as a ground for finding such a firearms regulation constitutional. I wish these judges would stop referring to Heller. Heller is now moot.
Yep. Ruin is the law of the land.
Heller is a completely moot decision now, because there is a much more strict case law.
Ruin. And
the judge was not amused by the housing authority's argument that it can ban tenants from owning handguns because they can buy crossbows instead. That's the one that caught my eye.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember that one. Yeah.
That is definitely the one that caught my eye.
This is New York, right?
Yeah, this is upstate New York.
Piece of Twilight, you should have just gone a crossbow.
Yeah.
Ah, my fucking gods.
Terrible.
Fucking taser, just get a crossbow.
Yeah.
Molly, now it's not the place or time.
Yeah.
I know, it's kind of funny though.
Okay, next one on the list is the California ammunition background check requirement. I believe this one was
this
an
is
FPC
the FPC
case,
right?
Yes, I believe this was an FPC case. Rhodey versus Bonta. Let's go ahead and get this fixed. Okay, so in 2016, well, let's go ahead and read the comment. Let's see the order. Now this was by Sir Benitez. Therefore, it is hereby ordered that Defendant Attorney General Rob Bonta and his officers, agents, servants, employees, and attorneys, and those persons in active concert or participation with him, and those duly sworn state police officers and federal law enforcement officers who gain knowledge of this injunction order or know of the existence of this injunction order are enjoined from implementing or enforcing the ammunition sales background check provisions found in California Penal Code 30352 and 30370A through E, and the ammunition anti-importation provisions found in 3312A and B and 30314A, as well as the criminal enforcement of California Penal Code 30312D, 30314C, and 30365A. Defendant Attorney General Rob Monta shall provide forthwith, by personal service or otherwise, actual notice of this order to all law enforcement personnel who are responsible for implementing or enforcing the enjoined statutes, which means all ATF field offices, all sheriff's offices, all police departments, to include the chief special agents in the ATF, chief special agents in the FBI, the sheriff in each county, and the chief of police in every police precinct. And likely the commissioners of each individual district.
Right. And they are now blocked from enforce any sort of enforcement, correct?
Yes, they are enjoined from enforcing those specific laws. So no more background check in California for now. I know that they had actually asked Judge Benitez to stay his decision until they could appeal it, but it seems that he is done. Because the last several times that he has stayed his decision, they have run things through the ringer with the Ninth Circuit. So let's look at...
So far, how has the Ninth Circuit been as it pertains to the new law of the land ever since Bruin? Have they been as insane as New York, or have they been reasonable?
They've been as insane as New York, but here's the thing. All of this, everyone had their eyes on California. No one cared about New York, even though the case law comes from New York. Everyone's been keeping their eye on the Ninth Circuit, because the Ninth Circuit holds California and Hawaii, which have, believe it or not, even more strict gun laws than New York.
Really?
Not so much in, in the way of broad law, but more so in specific law. They are very good at picking things out and writing a lot of bullshit just to make it stick. So, Firearms Policy Coalition writes this: though they are citizens entitled to enjoy all of the constitutional rights, Californians are denied the Second Amendment right to buy ammunition for self-defense at least 11% of the time because of problems with the background check system. The first argument employs a rhetorical device to describe in detail the asserted constitutional wrong. Having over-described the alleged constitutional right, it is then argued that the detailed description of the asserted right is not covered by the plain text of the Constitution.
Oh, wait. It said 11% of the time the demand to buy fucking bullets in self-defense
has been denied.
Yeah. So what if you just demand bullets for like recreational like hunting instead?
It can still be done
self-defense.
It can still be denied. The assumption plainly is that all firearms and all firearms accessories, which means anything that you need in order to make a firearm function, are in use for self-defense. Even if it's for hunting, the assumption under the law is that it's for self-defense, because the law that covers it is the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment is about defense of yourself and others, whether it be against an individual or from a tyrannical government.
Okay, yeah.
Let's see. Because ammunition sale prohibitions and regulations are covered by the Second Amendment, the presumption is that restrictions are infringements. To sum up, approximately 635,000 residents were required to undergo background checks in the last half of 2019, the denials of which prompted the arrests of 15 individuals, which led to 6 criminal convictions.
Wait, so you can be arrested for not passing a background check?
A background check, yes.
What?
What?
Yes.
Like,
you didn't know this?
I didn't. I thought that
This-
just meant you
That
could be
is fucking retarded. What the fuck?
I thought
So,
that
okay,
just meant
so-
you could be declined from purchasing the thing, but you can't just be arrested
So,
for failing the check.
if I'm a fucking law-abiding citizen and I just want fucking ammo to defend myself and I fail, I can go to prison.
Yes, you can. Here's the caveat to this. When they didn't, so speaking on a federal level, you have to fill out a 4473 in order to acquire a firearm from an FFL. When you fill out that 4473, if there isn't a background skipping provision in your state's law, for instance, in Iowa, there's one of our laws that basically says if you have a concealed carry license, you still have to fill out a 4473, but it doesn't have to be transmitted to the next system. So even though I fill out a 4473, I don't go through a background check because I've already had my background check, which is good for 5 years, and I'm coming up on my 5th year with my concealed carry license. When the 4473, however, does get transmitted to the next system, the FBI goes through all of this information. If you have a name that's similar to someone else's, if you have someone else's social security number, because those are not issued only to one person. Several people have the exact same social security number. They can put you on hold. They can deny you. And once they deny you, what's going to happen is they're going to investigate what the denial was for. And if they determine that you lied on your 4473, they are going to arrest you and they are going to prosecute you. Same thing happened in California. They determined that someone could have lied on their background check, which led to 15 individuals getting arrested, and 6 of them were criminally prosecuted.
Yikes.
So wait, what would happen if I by accident, they just fuck up my thing and I get denied by accident? Not my fault. No one's. I mean, their fault because they were fucking up, and they fucking jail me or some shit.
Well, the way this works is they're supposed to investigate and determine whether or not there's probable cause for an arrest. If there is probable cause for an arrest, they're going to go to a court. They're going to have an affidavit that's supposed to lay out all of the facts and request a warrant from the court. If the court says this is enough for an arrest, they're going to issue an arrest warrant based on that affidavit, and they're going to come and arrest you. If There is not probable cause for an arrest. If you did not lie on your background check, there's not going to be probable cause, generally.
Right.
But if you look bad enough, like the other 7 people of these 15, or not 7, the other 9 people of these 15, you're going to get arrested.
Sorry to interrupt. Stoner had a question. Sorry to interrupt. Stoner had a question in the chat that's been. I think it would be good to address.
Okay. What about the rights for citizens to own firearms in the individual state constitutions that have it? Which has supremacy, the 2A of the federal constitution or the constitutions of Okay. When it comes to the rights of citizens to own firearms, it's all trumped by the Second Amendment because of the 14th Amendment. The supremacy clause of the 14th Amendment. Let me go ahead and bring this up for you guys. 14th Amendment text. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Let me go ahead and get that fully up there. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This is what's called the Ultimate Supremacy Clause. It basically says that the Constitution is the law of the land throughout the entire United States. Anything that is not in the Constitution, the states can govern themselves. But when it comes to things that the Constitution has specifically covered, the states cannot restrict something that the Constitution has broadly given rights to the people over. So the Second Amendment itself is a very broadly written amendment to the Constitution. The states cannot come in and abridge the Second Amendment. They've tried ever since 1868 when the 14th Amendment was ratified. Even the federal government isn't allowed to abridge the Second Amendment. That's the big thing.
Right. They would actually have to pass another amendment to negate it if they wish to.
Which means they have to have a constitutional conference. Convention, thank you.
Well, aren't there 2 ways to pass amendments? It's either, like, I think you need 66% of... what is it? You need either 33 state legislatures, or you need I think is it 66% of Congress?
No, you need 26% of 26 states, not 33 states.
Oh.
You need 1/3, or no,
2/3.
Yeah, 2/3. Let's see, 2/3. 27 states.
Right.
You need 27 states, or a 3/5 majority of the Senate and Congress.
Oh, so it's
but you're not going to get either.
Yeah.
Then why have state constitutions when the feds can overrule it? Well, that's a simple fact of the matter. States such as Iowa or Missouri, in Iowa we just included back in 2022 a new provision into our state constitution that basically says that anything that comes to firearms law in the state of Iowa, when brought before the court, must be looked at with what strict scrutiny. But at that point, we don't look at it with strict scrutiny anymore, because right after that amendment, or right before that provision came up during the election cycle, we had already had the Bruin decision come down. So strict scrutiny no longer applies.
Yeah, and so Stoner asked another question, which I think I can answer this one reasonably well. He said, so say, for example, if the Second Amendment's abolished, then why use the state constitutions to protect firearms ownership? And the quick answer to that, Stoner, is let us say that tomorrow there was a constitutional amendment passed by the federal government that said the Second Amendment is null and void. Well, the reason why the state constitutions matter is because that federal amendment didn't say guns are banned, right? So anything that's not specifically laid out in the amendments of the federal government is then at the purview of the states.
Which is why,
if you're in a state that says we protect the right to keep and bear arms, if the feds abolish that right, you as a state still have that right.
Which is why there was still prohibition in Alabama for years.
It's not the same as outlawing something. Is basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give an example. Prohibition in the U.S. Prohibition was a big thing, but it was taken away just a few years after it was ratified into the Constitution. I believe it was, the 19th and 21st Amendments?
No, 19th is the women voting one.
Okay.
One that very much needs to be abolished.
I think men shouldn't vote, on the contrary.
Okay, 18th and 21st Amendment? Okay, so the Congress passed the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, prohibiting the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages. It was repealed about 13 years later, but there were still states that had prohibition.
Still do, don't they? Or some counties.
I actually don't know of any counties that are still dry anymore. The last county that I knew of down in Alabama that was dry has repealed their statutes on alcohol. But even
How
just
recent was this? Just curious.
I believe the repeal was back in 2016. The last time I was in that county was 2011.
Oh, that is recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have had dry counties throughout the country for years, but a lot of counties have gone ahead and removed those because they realized, hey, our residents in this county are going to the next county over and buying liquor.
Mm-hmm. They're not
kind of defeats the purpose of the law, doesn't it?
They're not giving us our tax dollars. They're giving it to the next county. Quick, we have to fix this.
It reminds me how they lowered the tax on tobacco, because although the tax on tobacco, did fulfill its objective, which was to decrease the amount of people smoking, once the amount of smokers decreased, they started getting less money from that tax, so they reduced the tax to get more people to start smoking again, which is fucked up.
Well, and there's a little bit more about that I'm not going to go into on this stream, but I will think about bringing it in on the next one, which is the master settlement from the 1990s. which has
what are you referring to?
bankrupted New York. There was a master settlement between the federal government and the tobacco industry, in which the manufacturers of cigarettes had to give money to the federal government and to the states. And a few states had, in fact, borrowed money against their portion of the settlement. And thanks to vaping, they went bankrupt, like New York.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Just real quick, what is a master settlement? Is that a different type of settlement than a normal settlement?
I refer to it as the master settlement.
Or is that just like the name of the lawsuit?
So it's the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement.
I see.
Let's see, It was signed in 1998. Okay, let's go ahead and so we have been talking about this one. So if a state identification requirement for voting, which burdens 4.5% of registered voters, is an unconstitutional burden on the 15th Amendment, surely a state identification requirement that blocks an untold number of gun owners from undergoing an ammunition background check and then rejects 11% of those who are checked is likewise an unconstitutional burden on the Second Amendment. If any background check system satisfies Bruin's footnote 9 description of a scheme put to abusive ends as opposed to the system originally approved by the voters, this may be it. The Attorney General has not identified a single historical law that requires a citizen to pass a background check in order to purchase ammunition. Guns made without serial numbers, or quote-unquote ghost guns, as the government refers to them, have been in existence throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. The state's The state's compilation lists 48 laws which made it a crime to possess a gun and ammunition by Negroes, mulattoes, slaves, or persons of color, and 2 laws that prohibited sales to Indians. This is the 3rd time the Attorney General has cited these laws in support for its laws and restrictions implicating the Second Amendment.
So I just want to point out that it's deeply funny to me that California, of all places, is arguing that because historically we've banned black people from owning guns, that means that we can prohibit the sale of ammunition to everyone. You know,
yeah.
Famously progressive California. Hey, we banned black people from doing this, so we can do it.
The Attorney General may complain that his list has 100 more laws to consider. They do not help his case. For the same reasons stated earlier, these repugnant historical examples of prejudice and bigotry will not be used to justify the state's current infringement on the constitutional rights of citizens. It treats all citizens as if they do not enjoy a right to buy ammunition. It forces Americans to entreat the supplicate the state for permission. This is not the language of a right. This is the language of a government license of grant of a privilege. Therefore, California's ammunition background check system laws are unconstitutional and shall not be enforced. The solution for the benefit of the nation as a whole is to enjoin enforcement of these protectionist laws and permit out-of-state businesses to sell directly to California's residents. For California residents traveling home with newly acquired ammunition for their firearm, the metaphorical harbor is anything but safe. Wow. They just completely demolished California and especially the Attorney General, trying to justify bans through racism.
Yeah. I love the FPC. They really do the Lord's work. Best gun rights organization of all time. Also one with the best Twitter game out of all of them, for the record.
Yes. Some of the best Twitter game. I've seen better. But generally...
From organizations or just like from accounts?
Just from accounts.
Yeah,
but
fair.
Generally speaking, not the ATF, the FPC has done a very, very good job of demolishing people on Twitter.
Yes.
I gotta love how liberals in America say, "Oh, we need to legalize all drugs because drugs have been used to prosecute black people," and then, they turn around and ignore, the fact that that's kind of how gun control started too.
Yep.
Yeah.
They aren't very intelligent people, or at least they aren't very honest people, or more likely both. But actually,
I feel like they just don't think for themselves. They just whatever fucking media tells them, they'll believe in an instant.
Indeed. The NPC meme is real. So just on that briefly, since we're talking about the ATF, have you heard anything recently? Like, what's up with their current pistol brace ruling? Is that still like?
It's still working its way through the courts.
Is it currently? Is the injunction against it still holding, or?
I believe for now there is an injunction against the ATF. They have not been able to knock it down. So pistol braces are back on the market for now.
Excellent. And is this still in appeals, or is it now is it Supreme? Like, where is it on the docket?
The most recent one that has the injunction that hasn't been stayed, it's still at the appeals level.
En banc or like a 3-panel?
I believe, both are en banc. It's just the number of judges that are on the panel. You've got a 3-judge panel and you've got a full court panel.
Oh, so I guess I had a bit of a misunderstanding there. I thought en banc was like the whole all the judges, whereas the 3-panel was just like it was just a couple. It was a random assortment of a couple judges.
So there's like I was saying, there's 2 levels to en banc.
What does en banc mean specifically?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't. I would.
Right, because I thought en banc specifically referred to the whole panel of judges.
En banc is French for on the bench.
Oh, all right. So it's just an appeal, basically.
Yes.
All right. So it's still with just the 3-judge or is it with the whole panel, or is it just with the random assortment of a couple of judges on the panel?
I would believe it's at the full court.
Oh, all right. So almost at the Supreme Court level,
Yes.
That's it. All right.
So ATF has been a thorn in our side for several years now. First with the bump stock rule.
Oh, let's be honest. First with Ruby Ridge.
Okay, I'm not going that far back in history. Okay, I'm talking about what I can remember since I became a firearms enthusiast.
Fair enough.
The ATF has been a thorn in our side ever since Vegas, with the bump stock ban. Now with the pistol brace ban. And now they're going even further. This time, they're going after private sales.
Yep.
These are sales in which we aren't selling in order to make a living. They're trying to define anyone that sells outside of an FFL, someone that's selling for profit, which is bullshit.
Yeah. So basically, let's say you have a friend and you have a gun and you want to. Your friend asks to buy your gun and you say sure and you sell him your gun. Congratulations, you're now a criminal according to the ATF.
Yep.
Fuck the ATF. Fuck those dog killers.
Even though it has strictly been outlined through U.S. law and state laws that private sales are absolutely fine to do without having to go through background checks and FFLs. You can sell privately.
Yes.
Let's see. A 1,300-page document to justify a rule effectively banning the private sale of firearms. The whistleblowers say the rule is being drafted by Senior Policy Counsel Eric Epstein, who worked as
Epstein, wow.
who worked as the Phoenix Field Office's division counsel during Operation Wide Received, a precursor of Operation Fast and Furious.
Oh.
Such a sweeping rule with the effect of banning private sales would clearly violate the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which declares that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Wait. I just have to understand this. So, a guy who was a part of fucking Operation Fast and Furious, the precursor to Fast and Furious, is now trying to ban people from fucking selling the guns to other people.
Yes, it's extremely ironic.
Wait, what's Operation Fast and Furious?
Operation Fast and Furious is an operation that the ATF went through in order to try to quote-unquote stop drug cartels when it came to American trafficking. However, the problem is they sold to the cartels and they lost the weapons.
Yeah. So they initially tried to sell guns to the cartels so they could track the guns, but then they failed at the tracking part. So they just sold a bunch of guns to the fucking cartels. Go figure. That's the federal government for you. And
Greatest
now, the guy
operation
who did that is now trying to say we can't sell guns to our friends.
Greatest operational failure in all of U.S. history, at least for as long as I can remember, when it comes to trying to stopping drug trafficking.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I didn't know this was a fucking guy from Fast and Furious. The height of irony. Oh.
Let's take a look. This morning, Empowered U.S. sent a FOIA request to the DOJ and ATF requesting Epstein's emails discussing any ban of private sales, as well as communications between ATF and DOJ on the topic. The text of the letter is below. I read that. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. Biden admin working to ban private sales of gun sales. Okay. Stop. Tristan, stop. We don't need the redundancy. ATF preparing to regulate private gun sales with background check, whistleblower group alleges.
I'm just thinking, like, are the people who are in charge of these agencies just so stupid? Like, on a strategic level, like, they should know who currently composes the Supreme Court, and they're like, are they trying to get their asinine fucking rules like rejected by the Supreme? Are they trying to overturn Chevron? Because this
I don't
shit,
think they're
like,
stupid. I think they're just narcissists.
fair enough, but like,
Chevron
are,
Chevron is already on the chopping block. There are 3 cases in front of the Supreme Court right now that have been approved for the docket for this year that have already gone to court argument and are just waiting for the court's decision.
Yeah.
We may see some scathing cut down on Chevron. Which
it just
completely
seems
in favor
like,
for.
Sorry?
I was just saying I'm completely in favor for it.
I agree, but like it just seems like these agencies, if they were at all conscious, like why would they be putting more potential fucking cases before the court that may guillotine Chevron and just kill their fucking power altogether?
Well, here's the thing: when it comes to these bureaucracies, they just have to find ambiguity in the right place to make things stick. That's for years that's how the NFA has worked. The Congress and the Senate have created enough ambiguity to let the bureaucracy of the ATF to just sit there and look at it and try to find ambiguity in one fucking word so that they can circumvent all of the lawmaking process. That's what bureaucracies do, is try to subvert lawmaking.
Yes. All I will say, final thought on this Chevron matter, I await with great interest Clarence Thomas's decision on one of these Chevron cases.
If only these agencies had a bit more agency.
Right? We're either due for a Thomas or an Alito majority opinion on one of these Chevron cases, and I await salivating for it.
Let's see. Stoner came in and said, "Remind me, how many atomic bombs did the feds lose, and how many small arms did they allow to fall into enemy hands?" I think what the ATF is doing is extremely stupid. Well, it's not just stupid, but we're talking about the federal government. They are the epitome of stupid.
Yeah, and just to briefly answer your question, Stoner, about how many atomic bombs we lost and how much arms fell into the hands of the enemies. Google the Lavon affair, and that's all I'm gonna say on that.
And so, given that, I think we are just about done for the night. Does anyone want to bring up anything real quick before we close out?
Going once.
Being gay is fun.
Debatable. Going twice.
Sold. Yeah.
Oh wait. Apparently Stoner wants to.
Okay, come on.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I out of the doghouse now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to give a quick shout out to Freya Lee.
Oh, is Freya watching?
She may be, but I was talking with her earlier today, and I told her I'd give her a nice shout out on the show.
Oh,
Okay.
fair enough.
Well, Freya, if you are watching, you are always welcome on the show. We have that talk. We had that talk. You are in the server. You're welcome back anytime.
Indeed.
Wait, why is she gone?
Oh, she's just not here right now.
Yeah.
She's busy. taking care of some stuff.
Okay, with all of that, let's go ahead and do our outros. I am going to go ahead and start with my lovely fiance, wife, homemaker. Say goodnight, Coda.
Good night, children.
And then we will go ahead and go to our native Serbian. Say goodnight, Molly.
Don't come to school tomorrow. Good night, people.
Okay, that's fucking ominous as fuck. Come on. And then we will go ahead and go to our guest host from Soviet Russia, which is no longer Soviet. Svetlana. Say goodnight, Svetlana.
Good night. Да здравствуй, Шурави.
And then we will say goodnight to our southern hosts. Stoner and Z, please say goodnight.
Night, night.
And finally, we are going to say goodnight with our co-host, our dirty Frenchy Frenchman, our Soviet Kanukistani, Dale. Please say goodnight, Dale.
Ladies and gentlemen, once more, our podcast has come to a close. It has been wonderful to spend this time with you all, entertaining you all, having fun, and shitting on the ATF together. Fuck the ATF.
Commissar Dale of the Soviet Union of Canada.
I would just like to say goodnight, au revoir, bonne nuit, good night, and hope to see you next time.
And with all that said, I'm going to follow out the same way that I always bring in the show. You guys get 3 minutes and 20 seconds of Deep Space Samurai from Forever Sunset. Good night, everyone. We will see you all next week.